That's good.
Good evening, March 4th, Citizens Involvement Committee. I'm sitting in for our chair, and I'm also taking roll. So I think I'll begin by calling roll. I'm from Kanema, so I'm the first. Three Rivers?
Two Rivers.
Two Rivers, oh, right, and I read it right there. Okay, and we all know it's Two Rivers.
If we were in Ontario, there would be 3 rivers.
Right. Okay, Gaffney
Actually,
Lane,
5.
is excused. Hillendale? Here. Tower Vista? McLaughlin?
Here.
Rivercrest? Caulfield? Here. Berkeley Hills?
Here.
I believe that's it.
Park Place.
Park Place, oh, excuse me. And why is that not on here? Why is this-
Here?
Nope. Oh, yeah, I missed it. Oh, excuse me, Park Place?
Here.
Yes, of course you are. All right. Okay, we have a number of presentations this evening, and I guess we should get right to it. First is the Help Oregon City Neighborhoods. Are we going to do that first, the pesticide?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay. And do we have Sharon?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, please come forward.
Thank you.
This is San. Do you want me to speak into it?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm Sharon Salvaggio. I'm with Northwest Center for Alternatives to Pesticides. And thanks a lot for allowing me to be here tonight. I am here to talk about our pesticide-free neighborhoods Oregon City project, which is being supported by the Oregon City Metro Community Enhancement Grant. And what this project is, and I have sort of a brief slideshow, but is maybe we could go to the second slide.
It should be right there.
Oh, right there. Okay, great. Basically, we are looking to outreach to as many Oregon City households as we can, and asking people to join in a pesticide-free pledge. And what a pesticide-free pledge will do is help keep families and pets safe from the adverse effects of pesticides that have been well documented, will help conserve pollinators and help protect streams. And we have prepared this resource packet that we're giving out as we go door to door in Oregon City and work to outreach to people at the farmers market and other places. And what this resource packet has, and what I could do is actually pass these around so you all have a copy of it. Okay. Thank you. I'll just really quickly describe. We have just kind of a overview brochure which gives people a little bit of information about those 3 values. It gives people a pledge form here. Has a little bit of information about our organization on the back. This is an important piece of it. It doesn't really help to talk about, pesticides being bad unless you give people alternatives, because if people have a pest problem that they can't solve one way or another, it's not going to do them any good to either decide not to use pesticides or basically just shut off that option. But we do know that for many household pests, whether in the yard, home, garden, there are alternatives that actually work. And so what this does is that it captures for the most common questions that we get for home and garden. This gives people a little blurb and gives them a link to go to more information. We also include this because lawn care is a place in which, in residential neighborhoods like Oregon City, a lot of herbicide use in particular happens. So this gives people really, good steps for basically maintaining a healthy lawn without having to use weed and feed. As well as if people are interested in going beyond sort of the traditional American green lawn, some ideas about how they might think about doing something different, whether an eco lawn, meadowscape, or rain garden. We also provide a couple of other things. This little card is about really how to talk to your landscape service if you have one. A lot of people just don't really even know what kind of questions to ask. So in this little card here, which we provide in both English and Spanish, we give people information about the kinds of things to ask a company if you're deciding you need to have someone come to your house and do a lawn treatment or structural treatment. And so this helps people think about basically integrated pest management, safety, and what to look for in a company. Finally, we have a couple of other resources here. This is a really interesting one. I don't know if any of you all have ever been to this, the Grow Smart, Grow Safe website and app that's run by Metro and King County, but this gives people kind of comparisons of different alternative products that are out there, and that compares the risks to different resources, like such as pollinators. You could look at this, and this is just a little refrigerator kind of thing. It gives people some just kind of basic tips. So let's go to. So we're looking to get pesticide-free pledges from 200 plus Oregon City households and to share these resources with at least 600 households. I think we're going to at least double the number of households that we actually meet because we are doing what we're doing in a variety of different ways. We are going door to door. We're also sending volunteers to the farmers market. We're going to have media articles, and I'm visiting organizations like this and hoping to help inspire people to help join us and have your neighbors join us. So yeah, that goes a little bit into some of our methods. So I'll stop now, and if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to try to answer them.
How long have you been active in this?
In this particular project, we kind of kicked off in December, just preparing our materials. We started recruiting volunteers. We had a volunteer kickoff in January, continued recruiting volunteers in February, began canvassing last month, began tabling at the farmers market this last weekend. We've started to do presentation to community groups. One volunteer is working with churches. I've reached out to schools, but at this point, I haven't done any presentations to schools yet.
And the response?
So the response is there are a lot of people who are interested in our packet. On the canvassing, about 1 in 13 households says yes, they want to take the pledge. That's, that may change because we're kind of just getting going on that. I've recruited about 10 volunteers. A lot of volunteers are more interested in going to the farmers market than they are in going door to door. But some people are willing to do that. Other people are willing to help write articles for the Oregon City News, go to churches, so on and so forth. So what I'm finding is that there are some people that are highly motivated to help us, and I'm trying always to recruit more.
Good.
Yeah.
Question.
Right?
At the beginning, you mentioned the OC Metro Enhancement Plan. Could you explain a little bit about what that is? I've never heard of it.
It's the Community Enhancement Grant Program that's run through the City of Oregon City. So funding for this is being provided by that. Our organization is also just completed a stormwater training for landscape professionals. We just completed that last Friday. But that's another part of our project under the Community Enhancement Grant. Yeah.
Steve?
So how soon are you looking to have the 200 households?
Well, we're going to complete the whole project by, middle of June. So we're basically, I'm gearing up to be out in the community, regularly. It's pretty much almost every weekend, and then some evenings. And the farmers market, we're scheduled to be there pretty much all the weekends between now and the beginning of April. And after that, Jackie says they probably can make space for us. But, as she gets more and more vendors, it'll sort of be like a week by week. She'll see if she's got a spot for us. So, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
And one
Yes.
last one. Go ahead. Order.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
What if somebody, pledges this year, but then they find out they get some kind of infestation or something that they didn't know about? For instance, our house is for the most part pesticide-free.
Yeah.
But last summer, we did get some ground nest yellow jackets that we called an exterminator into, and he sprayed some. Would that bring down the wrath of this thing on us if something did happen?
Well, we've told people they have to move out of Oregon City if that's the case. No, I mean, this is, a pledge is really, it's obviously completely voluntary. And we do understand that sometimes people might not be able to keep it, It really is a way to get people to think, to take that extra step to sort of think about what they want to do and whether there's an alternative before they take, the pesticide is sort of the first answer. So we're not going to come after people if they are not able to completely uphold, this is a voluntary thing. Yeah. But I think that's a good question because I have thought about that. And I think that it can be a barrier for some people, like, what if something happens and I'm not going to be able to?
Yeah, at that point, I'm not dealing with that. I'm calling a professional.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's just all these things flying all over.
Yeah.
They're coming out of a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
John?
Yes, so thanks, Sharon, for the presentation. It's amazing to me always how many good things are going on in the community that, sometimes guys like me just don't know. We're busy doing other things. So when I heard about this, I was pretty excited because we are also, the city is a co-permittee through Clackamas County for what we call the NPDS, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. Mm-hmm. So we have to report annually, and we have to do some things. We, of course, are a stormwater utility. Mm-hmm. So, one of the big charges behind the whole stormwater utility is providing cleaner and better managed stormwater. Mm-hmm. And that's a challenge. Mm-hmm. And so when I heard that you were coming to this meeting and to this particular group, I thought about how this group could help interface in a big way, because pesticide use is in a urban environment like what we're here in Oregon City is the only way to make a difference is through individuals in their own practices in their yards. So I was excited about it. I'm excited to hear about your effort. I'm not quite sure how we could, further partner with you. I see you put us on the brochure, our logo on the brochure, which I think is outstanding. Beyond children and pets in their yards, the other thing that you need to think about is in Oregon City, we've got 15 drainage basins, right? So Oregon City sits at the top of the hill, and we've got 15 of these drainage basins, depending on the neighborhood, some of them drain towards Willamette, some of them drain towards Clackamas, some of them drain towards Newell Creek, and they're short basins, right? They're not like the Willamette River Basin. They're very short basins, and most of them originate in a neighborhood, right? Residential neighborhood. Yeah. And yes, we have some commercial districts, but for the most part, our streams are located in residential neighborhoods. And, the problems that we see with our streams, our urban streams, is usually temperature, which is kind of hard for us to really manage, right? Mm-hmm. Because well, now it's just cold out, right? So they're doing just fine. But in the summertime, they're not doing such a good job. And there's, shade is a great way to help with temperature. But it's really the pesticides and the herbicides that are going on your yard that makes a huge difference in not only what it does to your yard and how it could affect your pets and I get those are good. People get emotional about those things. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is the quality of your streams. And while most of our streams aren't necessarily fish-bearing streams, they have a lot of microscopic bugs that really kind of measure the quality of that river or stream. And those pesticides threaten those macroinvertebrae, that's what they're called. And some urban streams are more healthy than others. Ours actually aren't bad, but It's depends, right? It really depends. You could have one property owner who's doing a very poor job managing pesticides in their neighborhood, and it would effectively kill off any of those macroinvertebrate in that creek. And so, I mean, I just applaud your efforts. I just wanted to mention really one thing that we have yet to even, it's brand new, it's right off the press, so we just got it in February, but Oregon City, along with other cities in the Clackamas County jurisdiction, collaborated on a what we call a coordinated macroinvertebrate assessment. And that was really just scientists getting in the streams, measuring the amount of bugs that are in those streams, and rating the various urban streams to determine whether or not ours were problematic or others were more problematic. It was definitely a science project, if you will, but they were done by professionals who would do a lot of this around the region. And in Oregon City, the two creeks that they looked at were Coffee Creek and Singer Creek. And both of those were, so just, I just took down a couple notes. They rate streams from non-disturbed to severely disturbed. So Oregon City is only slightly disturbed, which is step 2. So we should feel good about that, right? We're only slightly disturbed, but you know, and I as you know, or many of you know, I used to work for Lake Oswego. They did a lot of streams in Lake Oswego too, and I was just happy to see that we beat out Lake Oswego. We're much less disturbed in Oregon City than they are in Lake Oswego. So that's a good thing. But again, the only way to really improve an urban stream is through things like plantings, native plantings. Those things are always good. Shade, those are always good. But pesticide use is almost on every yard in the city. There's folks who either don't like the pests, don't pick up their animal waste, or they apply product to kill off the things that they think are kind of problematic. And so, you know, it would be nice to see the neighborhood through the CIC make this a priority, because I think talking to your neighbors is going to be probably a little more effective, especially if you're armed with this kind of information. This is great. So again, thanks for that. I just wanted to share. Okay.
Thank you so much. I mean, you sound like a fish biologist, and I love all the information that you shared. I just to follow up really quickly, the U.S. Geological Survey surveys streams nationwide and has for about over 20 years. And between the decade of 1992 to 2001, essentially, urban streams, 53% of the samples had basically one or more pesticides that exceeded what they call an aquatic life benchmark, a safe level for fish and aquatic invertebrates. But in the second decade, from 1992 to 2011, in the summary, and this is nationwide, an average, but over 90% of urban streams had at least one sample that exceeded that level. So it got really about twice as bad in 10 years, which was pretty bizarre. Maybe the sampling, the test methods got more sensitive. I'm not 100% sure what the reasons are. But anyway, it is a problem in urban areas. It's partly lawn use, and it's partly a lot of people get the ant treatments on the perimeter of their houses, which are often hardscape, you know, driveway and stuff. And those chemicals can immediately run off. And so that presents a really big problem for our streams. And so thank you so much. What I really am hoping is that if you're interested in getting involved one way or another, you'll let me know. And if you want some of these packets for you to distribute yourselves, or if you want to help come volunteer, please let me know. I am scheduled to come to some of your neighborhood association meetings over the next few weeks. And so I look forward to that and talking to you more. Thank you so much. I think my
Do you have
contact
your email?
information.
I'm going to give your email out.
Yes, unfortunately I forgot cards, but it's, and I'm wondering, is it on the back of this? It's S. Salvaggio, basically my first initial and then my last name, at pesticide.org.
And I can send that on a follow-up email, but I wanted to
Thank
get out
you.
on video.
I hope I didn't take more time than I was supposed to, but thank you for this discussion. It was really
Well, before
helpful.
you Go, I have.
One
Oh,
question.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that would be very helpful is if you could schedule a session with our Parks Department, because I know that I don't know what it was, but something gets sprayed on the McLaughlin Promenade. And I will honestly tell you, I've seen the cities, whoever does our yard work out here, they don't pull weeds. They take their little wand and they're going around and doing stuff. And I see that all over the place. In, not just in Oregon City, but elsewhere where, weeding is a little too intensive. So they just put whatever it is they're putting on it. So, and I know we have permits because we have licensed applicators who work for the city, but maybe we need to be looking at other methods to take care of whatever it is they're spraying.
It would be great to have a follow-up conversation about that, I think. It's kind of outside the scope of what we're doing this
I know.
year, but I've had several people mention that to me. And right now, I'm not prepared to really, kind of go in that direction. But it would be really great to have a follow-up conversation with people who are interested in that. So thank you. Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, next we have Village at the Falls with, excuse me. Yep,
No, I'm done.
you're done? Oh, I missed it. Village at the Falls,
Didn't you say in
Diane?
between?
Oh, I think John just did it.
What?
John just did it. We're good.
Okay, next. Please, come forward, Diane.
Come on, Anne, join the party. Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Peterson. I'm the Outreach Coordinator for Village at the Falls, and this is Ann Beatty, our Village at the Falls Chair and Volunteer Extraordinaire. Thank you so much for the time that you're giving us this evening. We are a group of volunteers forming here in Oregon City to help Oregon City area residents remain in their homes as they age, with the help of volunteers who provide services and social opportunities. Forgive me if I'm a little hoarse. It's like week 2 of a cold that I've had, and after 6 boxes of Kleenex, it's not going away. I'm going to read my prepared notes, so hopefully I don't forget anything important. And then if anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer them. So I'm here tonight because we need your help. As involved members of the Oregon City community, I'm sure you've seen it in your neighborhoods. I know I have in mine. Our Oregon City neighbors are aging. 9,000 people over 50 live in Oregon City alone. That's over 25% of our population. So why are we starting a village? As we think about our aging neighbors and how to help them, here's what we find. A 2018 AARP survey shows that 3 out of 4 adults aged 50 and older want to stay in their homes and communities as they age. Yet only 59% anticipate that they're going to be able to do that. And we're hoping to be able to change that. So here are some of the major challenges to aging in place according to the AARP. Transportation, which is a big issue as we get older, our ability to drive changes, and we're not quite yet at the self-driving cars, which hopefully will happen in our lifetime. Home maintenance, which can take a big bite out of a fixed income. I just had a client today call me and say, I've got $6,000 in repairs to do. Who can I get? Give me a better deal. Household tasks such as shopping, housework, or bill paying. The little things that we take for granted in life as we age sometimes become more difficult. A big one, isolation and loneliness. Very serious problems for older adults, especially as more are living alone. So as more of us insist on remaining in the community as we age, building social networks will become increasingly important. We believe Village at the Falls can help. So what is a village? A village is a group of like-minded people in a geographic area who come together to identify and develop the resources and support they will need to age comfortably in their own homes. In this case, Village at the Falls will serve Oregon City, Beaver Creek, and Redland, which, as we all know, is a pretty big area, but we're rural in a lot of cases. So hopefully we'll be able to serve a big chunk of those 9,000 people. So we're neighbors helping neighbors. Villages embrace the strategy of bringing services and support to people rather than moving the people to those services. Village members pay a small monthly fee to receive assistance and services from neighbors who volunteer their time. So Village at the Falls is new, but the village movement is not a new concept. It started about, a decade ago with 12 older adults in Boston at a village called Beacon Hill Village. And there are now hundreds of villages nationwide with many more in development. We currently have 7 active villages in the Portland metropolitan area, including Vancouver, and we have 4 in development with the latest addition, Manzanita at the coast. So we are not alone. What is the cost of membership in a village? We haven't determined the exact cost yet, but it will fall somewhere between $25 and $50 a month, depending on the type of membership. We do plan to offer a sliding scale or financial assistance for those in need. And I've given you a handout that has this little Falls logo on it. And on the back of it is an example of some of the costs of expenses that you might routinely have versus what those services would cost as part of a village membership. And you can see with light housekeeping, a handyman call, 2 rides per week adds up to $425. That's a lot of money for most people. For your $50 membership fee, you get those things included. So the difference between $450 and $50 or thereabouts. So as you can see, it could be a big cost savings depending on what your needs are. Why do we need to charge membership and raise funds if it is an all-volunteer organization? Funds are needed to cover operating expenses. Unfortunately, there's just no such thing as a free organization anymore. We have liability insurance background checks for volunteers. All volunteers are background checked. Publicity, brochures, and the software that manages the matching of the volunteers to the needs of the members. We also plan to provide financial assistance for members who cannot afford the fee. We want to be able to provide these services to our neighbors for years to come, so we need to remain financially solvent. We are a program of Villages Northwest, a 501c3, so all donations are deductible, which with our current tax rate, who knows what that means. What are the benefits and services of membership? An annual membership can simplify your life, save you money, help you maintain your home, reduce your stress, keep you mobile, and connect you to others in your community. The benefits include confidence, connectedness, independence, and peace of mind, all things that are important as we age. So stay home, stay active, stay connected. Members of the Village at the Falls will have those benefits through social events and educational programs, services from volunteers that might include rides, the transportation component of aging, lighthouse work and yard work, errands, grocery shopping, companionship and safety checks, help navigating a variety of social and governmental services, and the fun technology assistance for those of you who have cell phones and computers. The other thing that we offer is going to be screen professional services. So service providers who have been vetted and frequently provide discounts to older members. So where you come in, we're recruiting volunteers and identifying potential members for a planned 2020 launch. So we've got a year to make this all come together. We need your help to spread the word. So I'd like to meet with each one of you, or at least talk with each one of you, to schedule a meeting in your neighborhood to address your communities. If any of you have some spare time, of course, we'd love to have you join us as volunteers or future members. And as Viva Village, an operating village in Beaverton, says, aging is a team sport. Let's do it together. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Any questions?
Yeah, got one quick one. The one thing I see that jumps out at me is the handyman services and shit like that. How do you certify that the people that are providing the services are properly licensed and qualified for that?
These are going to be volunteers.
Okay,
They'll be background checked, but they're not operating as a licensed handyman service. They're going to be a volunteer. They're going to be a neighbor coming over to help you replace a washer in your faucet or
I
change a
mean,
light bulb.
do they have a limit of what they can do? Because, I mean, I've been in construction trades for 35 years, and I've got a stack of certifications and licenses and all kinds of stuff like that that says I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that if I go and I do something wrong and I flood your house out, I have insurance to cover that. What kind of guarantees do the people that are paying $50 a month have that the guy coming in isn't going to destroy their house accidentally?
Well, we would love to have you as a volunteer. So we're not looking at doing electrical or plumbing or things like that that would require certification. We're looking at light handyman services.
Okay.
So we don't want people up on ladders. If they need a light bulb change, that would be kind of a handyman thing. Like I said, if you need a washer change to help
So anything, if somebody needed a water heater changed, you'd say, what?
if you need a water heater changed, I'm hoping that we would have somebody on our service
That could do
provider
that.
list that might be willing to offer a discounted
I see.
rate for
Okay.
that. And
That's good.
yeah, all services like that would be done by a professional who was licensed and bonded.
Good.
Good question, thank you. And we'll put you on the list. Anybody else have any questions? Did I do such an efficient
I
job?
just have one. It would seem your presentation is to assist those who would wish to stay at home
Absolutely.
as opposed to go on to something like assisted living or something like that. At what point, if it happens, that they can no longer be left in a home of their choice, how do you interface with getting them into facilities that might be local or maybe outside the area? Or is that your concern?
That really would not be our place. We do have resources that could help with that, but that would probably be more up to either the person's family or that would kind of be outside of our current, at least.
I mean, I speak from my own experience. Recently, in the last few years, I had my in-laws, and they were hard, fast set on staying within their house.
Right.
And it became clear that that was no longer possible. And so there was that transition from considering an alternative and then actually following through. And that took over a period of, a year, certainly. And then it required a big move and a whole transition. So, I mean, I think there's some issues there that sort of affect that, in that, like, if I had a service such as yours, they would be happy and we would all be happy, but the reality was that there was no longer any way that they could maintain or stay within a house, even with part-time services and or help. And so I'm a little suspect on, like, how that would happen in terms of like the encouragement to, seek other advice or get some other services that go beyond the scope of just aid and comfort and getting them to the store and like that. So
Sure, well,
maybe it's medical, maybe it's mental, maybe there's other issues that pertain to a client. So I don't know how your agency or
so the people that
village-
we would have that would be volunteering would be trained to see when a person is not maybe able to stay in their home and would advise whoever is helping them outside of our organization that maybe it would be time for them to think about an alternative. Other than that, we don't really deal with the medical part of the aging in place. So
in the setup, the monthly fee, is this a contractual thing that can be adjusted to the effect of like a particular client? Or, are they locked into an annual kind of fee? Are they committed to something like that? How is that structured?
right, this is an annual membership, and it's volunteers, so neighbors helping neighbors. It is a contractual agreement, and, all things are open to negotiation. So if something happens and somebody has to move on, everything is on a case-by-case basis, so.
Okay,
We're at the very beginning of this, so we haven't had those issues yet. We're not even up and operating. We're looking at 2020. That's a really good question, and I'm sure we're going to be coming up with all kinds of things like that. But we're going to be small, We're a volunteer organization. We're not a big company. And so I'm sure everything can be addressed on a case-by-case basis.
okay. Anybody else? Yes.
Hello.
Hi,
Rachel Lyle Smith, Oregon City Commissioner. First, I love the program. I think, I assume you have a way to tap into maybe the national group. There's an umbrella organization, right, that's kind of
Right.
overseeing the installation in all of the cities. So maybe at your presentations in the future, maybe you can talk about how other programs have been successful in other cities to maybe provide a little more context for us to wrap our minds around how it's actually implemented when you get there. I don't know how active the Portland ones. You said there's 7 in the Portland area that are
They're
active.
very active.
Yeah, so maybe someone from there can actually speak to, how is it working on the ground there, just to help us relate to what it would look like here.
Sure.
I have seen your Facebook page, so I would encourage you. I'm following you guys on
thank you.
Facebook.
Great.
And so just to let everybody know that they do have a Facebook page for this location of trying to recruit volunteers.
Right, thank you for the plug. All that information, the contact information is on the back of the brochure, so.
Yeah, and the last thing I would say is I would encourage you to look at the Community Enhancement Grant Program. The previous speaker mentioned it, and Roy asked a question. I was planning on mentioning it later when I had a chance to come back around. But the city is about to launch a new page on our website that talks about the grant application program or the application process with instructions for the following year. And I'm happy to say a couple things about it now if you'd like, or I can
Sure.
wait. Because Roy, you asked about it as well. So what this program is that the city receives money from Metro because of the South Transfer, the waste collection that's down by Home Depot.
South Metro
South,
Transportation.
yeah,
Transportation.
that's the official name, yeah.
Yes.
And for every ton of waste that gets processed, we get $1 or something. There's some exchange rate that, and so because of that, we have a community enhancement grant program using those dollars. And if we don't spend all the dollars in any given year, the excess rolls over to the following year. Last year was the first year that we actually had enough grant applications to spend all of the money, but the years prior to that, we didn't even have enough grant applications. So we kind of never know what we're going to get. And so the application period is about to open. Like I said, I don't even think the page is up on our website yet, so if you'll give it a couple of weeks. But our contact with the city is Lori Bell. She is the contact for this program. And I was going to mention it to you all because we will be looking for organizations like the two that have been presented here tonight that are 501c3s. There's a whole list of what makes them eligible, but that are willing to do projects in Oregon City. They don't have to be based in Oregon City, but their work that they do needs to benefit Oregon City. And so I kind of hate the idea of us not spending the money. Granted, it rolls over, but it would be good to have a good application pool for the selection committee to review and pick some good projects for our city. So just kind of a heads up to,
Great,
to that.
thank you.
Good.
Anybody else?
Right?
Yeah, I'm talkative tonight for some reason. And I like the idea of this program here. And this is a really kind of a little nitpicky little thing is the name itself, Village at the Falls. I had to read this like 8 times before I could convince myself this wasn't a retirement home or something. I don't know if that name's fixed in stone or not, but
Yeah,
if I,
pretty much.
yeah, if I see that, I'm walking by, oh, it's just another retirement home. That's the first impression I get from the name. And I just a little input.
Thank you, I
Not
appreciate
that it can do anything, but,
We'll find a way to work around that one. Thank you for your input, I appreciate that.
all right.
Okay,
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
thank you. And now we're moving on to public comments. And do we have anybody in the audience? Seeing no one out there. We go into updates on our last meeting, and I guess we go through the attachments, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This
Wanna help
actually,
me out?
sure, this is an attachment from the January meeting because our February meeting was canceled. So you have presentations from the 99E tunnel work that ODOT presented, as well as the Beaver Creek concept plan, PowerPoint. And I also added the 2018-2019 postcard budget, which was from the January date. And there was a discussion about neighborhoods that were using more than their allocated money. And there was some carryover from last year, the 2018, 17-18, and about $5,000. And Kelsey McNall updated me a couple weeks ago to let everyone know that all the anticipated overages can be made up from that $5,000 carryover. So this year, no neighborhood has to ask another neighborhood for money. So continue your neighborhood association postcards as planned.
Good. Excellent.
And so for the, coming up for this meeting, I will send everybody the PowerPoint for the pesticide-free Oregon City, as well as Susan's email for the group. Plus anything else you asked me to do before the end of the evening.
She's coming to our meeting on Thursday, so.
Oh, great.
Have I missed any of those? Have we covered them all?
Mm-hmm.
Great, okay. So are we going to conduct an election?
We have a quorum.
Okay. So we need to select among ourselves a vice president for the CIC. And I wonder if anybody would want to step forward and put their name in nomination. Don't be bashful.
Everybody's jumping up.
It's a really easy position. You only have to do this.
You have to do this.
Well, every once in a
What your
while,
secretary's doing.
Chair Will Height is rarely gone, so it's only an odd meeting where this has to
this is-
happen.
Not
Anomaly.
that the meeting's odd.
Yeah, it's an odd meeting where
You mean
Chair Will Height
it's
is here.
infrequent?
Correct.
Because
But
I
not
think
this-
she just called all you guys, called us
Yeah,
all.
but we're
You can use whatever
less
inference you
disturbed.
want.
I like the word.
I am willing.
Steve would
I'll
would
nominate Steve.
nominate
Do
it.
we have a second?
I'll second.
Great.
And do we go to a vote?
Why don't you ask if there's anybody else before we?
Any other nomination? Anybody else would like to be a contender? You're good.
I'll move that the nominations be closed.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great.
Okay,
Is
so
that-
this is a vote for the 2019 vice chair position for the Citizen Involvement Committee. And I'm going to call out by the Neighborhood Association. And this is to nominate Stephen Van Helverbeek. Berkeley Hills,
Yes.
Kenema,
Yes.
Caulfield,
Yes.
Gaffney Lane is not here. Hillendale,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Aye.
Park Place.
Yep.
Vote
Rivercrest is
What's the
not
reason?
here. South End is not here. Tower Vista, too. So motion carries and congratulations.
Thank you, Steve.
Steve is our vice chair. Congratulations. Okay, moving forward, general business, work plan, work plan 1, goal 3, developing resources to help maintain active neighborhood associations. There were a number of things that I recall we were considering, and I don't know if we can proceed with that.
Well, 2 out of the 3 group leads are not here tonight.
Right.
But Roy is here.
Yeah, I have not gotten too much further with my assignments, I guess. The 2 assignments being setting up a display at the farmer's market and then one for the National Night Out. I have not followed up with the farmer's market yet. My plan is to just stop by one Saturday when it's happening and just talk to the people there and find out what I need to do to get it set up. I did find out some information on the National Night Out from Chris Wadsworth over at the police station. They're moving it this year down to the end of the Oregon Trail. It's not going to be at the school where it's been the last few years.
At Mount Pleasant, you mean?
In Mount Pleasant, that's it. So it's going to be moving down there, and she wasn't sure if they were going to be opening it up to all the different vendors that have been out there the last few years because of space and such. They just want to keep it small scale this first time there. But I just let her know that, I'd be doing something, but I haven't said anything solid yet with that.
Okay.
That's where I stand on those.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes, one suggestion.
Since we're still in the winter market and they just had it last Saturday and they won't be having it, why don't you just call Jackie Hammond Williams instead of trying to go up there, because she's the one you're going to need to talk to.
I don't know who that is. Who's it?
Jackie Hammond Williams is the farmer's market director.
And Roy, I can forward you her
Yeah.
information.
Just
Okay,
email her or call her. That would probably be easier.
all right, I'll take that. Thanks.
Because usually at the market, she's wandering all over the place. You'll be lucky if you catch her.
She's very responsive. though.
Yes. Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah.
So if I can ask a question, so if we're going to have we're looking at static displays and booths, do we have the materials? Do we have booth stuff? Does the city provide any booth information, or is that something that this group needs to work on?
It's something that will work plan for the group.
Okay.
Rachel, my recollection is that when the neighborhoods were reforming some years ago, there was volunteers who staffed a booth, and one of the exhibits was, we have a large map of all the neighborhood associations that was there, and I think one of the things they were doing was they had a bunch of those little push pins. So they say, well, where do you live? And then they were putting them in to see, which neighborhoods people lived in. And they handed out a list that was something similar to the one that comes in the packet right now on who to contact and when the meetings were. It was very simple.
Just
That's-
that would be really
Yeah.
good,
Right.
because there's a lot of people who don't know what neighborhood.
Yeah.
Particularly new
Exactly.
people who
Yeah.
have moved to the area.
There's, we're talking 2 separate items here.
Yeah, not the neighbors night out, I was talking
Right.
about the,
So the board, I've done the National Night Out the last couple of years, manned the booth for a while. And we had the board with the neighborhood lined up, and we had the little handouts that list all the neighborhood associations. But that's separate from the static displays, which we hope to put in the library and in the pool, I think was recommended, or the Pioneer Center. That's something that needs to be developed still. But I think John Lewis might have the board, at least he's the one that takes it away
Oh, I
every
have
year.
it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I have the big board and the banners for big public events for too.
Yeah.
But this working group is working on kind of a small display that you would see with maybe some flyers.
I think another thing they had at the booth was they had extra copies of like the trail news, because even though we all get it, people, I don't think they really look at it, and it's a really good resource as a reference resource for that particular month, because you can go back and go, oh yeah, there's such and such events going on, or this is going on, and that, was really helpful. I think the
That's a
other
great
thing
idea.
they had too was the chamber puts out that booklet.
Around Oregon City?
Yeah, around Oregon City, yes, that's what it's called. They had some of those, and it was, pretty basic. I mean, it wasn't like a whole table full of stuff, because, people come by and they sort of take stuff, but then they don't always read it. So it was minimalist, but it had a lot of it was a lot of concentrated information. And I think they also had a list too, because, there's a lot of people who have an Oregon City mailing address, but they don't live in Oregon City. So they had information about the Beaver Creek CPO and the one that's in Redland. And I think that was, and maybe they might have had one about the one in Damascus. I think that was the farthest out that they went, because, once you get out of our county, it's like, we're not giving information out about what's going on in Multnomah County.
I think Karis has one too.
Yeah, Karis, yeah. So they had a little bit of that, because obviously there's a lot of people that, so anyway, that's what I recall that was at the booth. And I know that I had volunteered. I was up there a few times in the past. So there's your whole list right there.
Anything else? I could enter one more thing. The item 2 was a combined working group of Vern, myself, and Amy. And I think I'll just push that forward since we haven't met to another time. So I think we can move on to roundtable. Would that be correct? Yes. And want to start, Roy?
Sure. Hallandale neighborhood and also Tower Vista, but Vern's not here. We normally would have our steering committee tomorrow night, but we're actually pushing that back a week until the following Tuesday, due to the fact that many of the people are going to be out of the area, and also the candidates for the city commission special meetings going on Tuesday and Wednesday night. So we've decided, since our next general meeting is in April, and we've pretty much got that all figured out, so we're just going to push back a week and then have our steering committee meeting on the 12th instead of the 5th as scheduled. We had our meeting last month, our steering committee meeting, just finalized some things for our April general meeting, and things are pretty quiet in Hallandale right now, so there's not much going on.
Great. John?
We haven't met since November, so a meeting coming up. The last meeting we had a lively conversation on the Beaver Creek concept plan. It lasted, an hour and a half.
Yeah,
It was quite
really
intense.
good.
We had a pretty good crowd that night, but it was pretty intense. And we got some answers. We had 2 other meetings at the high school afterwards. And so people that went to those were kind of happy with what they heard and got some information. But, our area, that's going to matter a whole lot to us, what happens on Beaver Creek Road. So that's the main concern we have right now.
Okay.
Well, Barclay Hills had our steering committee meeting last month, and we're having our general meeting next week. We got our cards put out. I kind of did a background on the cards to see how things were going, and I've got people saying they're not getting them, and from the way that I did it in the background while I worked for the post office, I figured out how it was going, and there's really no reason people shouldn't be getting their cards. They're not being thrown away by the carriers. You know, they're getting printed, they're getting sent to the printer is getting them in a timely manner, and they're getting out. So that's kind of what I've been doing for us, because everybody's complaining they weren't getting their cards. So we're gonna have a meeting next week, and it's gonna be great. We're gonna have,
Sharon?
the lady from the pesticide free. She's coming, and someone else is coming, so, yep, we're gonna have a good one. Oh, yeah, Denise is coming to talk about those fun. Yep,
That's it?
yeah.
Steve?
Park Place had a steering committee meeting on February 18th, and it had a very discussion on equitable housing and code changes in Oregon City. So then our next meeting is March 18th. Wait, is that the right day? It must be.
We're going to hold you to it.
Yes, March 18th. And just in case, who maintains the,
It's based on whatever's on the website for your neighborhoods, so take a look at your neighborhood association page. And if you don't have updated information, send it to me.
okay. So I will get those corrected.
Okay.
For Kanema, we had a general meeting last week. Talked about a number of things, the current projects that are going on in Kanema. We had a good presentation from Kelly Reed. She spoke both about planning, and she also spoke about the code review, historic code review, and went through them, has a number of charts. I think she's intending, if she hasn't already, going around to various neighborhoods and with her placards. And maybe some of you have had that already. She lays it out pretty well in terms of making the presentation and asking for input on some of the changes that the city's considering in terms of like code requirements. And it was a lively discussion, and she had Post-it notes and little note cards that you could make suggestions. And I think as I said, she's going to be going around to the other neighborhoods and soliciting, your opinions and items related to code review. That was our meeting last week.
Okay.
Denise?
The McLaughlin neighborhood will be meeting this Thursday, and for those of you watching at home, we are not meeting at the library, we're meeting at the fire station because there was somebody got the date ahead of us, so we can't meet at the library this time. So it'll be upstairs on the second floor, the fire station, and we will be having Sharon Salvaggio, so I'll get to hear the presentation again. And we're also having our neighborhood liaison planner, Kelly Reed, who's going to talk about the Historic Review Board recommendations, or actually the Historic Review Board is in the process of reviewing some of the policies with regard to fencing, solar panels, and other things that pertain to historic property. So I know she's going to Kanema and McLaughlin, but she's probably not going to the other neighborhoods with it because they don't.
Oh, really?
They don't. The historic code stuff doesn't apply to them.
Ah.
So it's only for the conservation and the historic district. So
Excuse me.
we have been giving her some input on fencing. She's actually had a couple of us driving around the neighborhood, looking in different neighborhoods. And when I go into Portland, I look at different people's fences. So I've been stopping and taking pictures. We also will be doing whatever we can to help that. We also will be, we've finalized our set of goals for the year, which include a lot of the same goals we had last year, which is participating with the Oregon City Parks Foundation on projects involving the parks in our neighborhood. We have an ongoing project right now on the McLaughlin Promenade. We have an ongoing project in Waterboard Park with the ivy pulling. And we also have a project that we will be having on the 14th involving Atkinson Park. So I have some flyers here. I didn't make the color ones for you guys, but I'll hand these out. But anyway, on March 14th, we are having a PI day fundraiser selling and auctioning off pies. And we are raising money to assist the city with some repairs that need to be made to the Buena Vista Clubhouse. And if you're not familiar with the Buena Vista Clubhouse, it is located in Atkinson Park at 16th and Jackson. And it is a valuable resource in our neighborhood, and we want to do what we can. I should also mention that we may also have some pirates at the event. So Pie Day, pirates, and pies. Just for a hint, I am going to be making one of the many that I'm making. I'll be making a walnut chocolate bourbon pie. So come on down. And then we have our next steering committee meeting is in April.
Well, thank you. So just to respond back to John, I made a presentation at the Caulfield Neighborhood Association about the Beaver Creek Roads Concept Plan. And I want to just thank you and compliment you for running a great meeting. We had a really good discourse. People respected generally each other. I felt when we left the meeting that everyone had a chance to talk, to ask questions, and kind of say their feelings. So just congratulations on a well-run meeting. And I hope that's just indicative of all the neighborhoods and how we can run just respectful meetings for some topics that sometimes are, not everyone agrees with the approach. So thank you.
We didn't agree with you all the time?
We can still have, a very respectful meeting. Just some dates for everybody. Continuing with the Beaver Creek Road Concept Plan, we had an open house in January at the Oregon City High School. It was really great. We heard from a lot of people. We asked kind of very targeted questions. You can go on the Beaver Creek Road Concept Plan page, which is on the Planning Division's page. We'll have our second open house on April 9th. It's a Tuesday. Also at the Oregon City High School Library, we'll have introduction to code concepts, not necessarily red lines, but kind of approaches, as well as draft maps and some questions. So I encourage you to stay involved. And if you can't go to the meetings but want to learn more, you can always put your email under the Contact Us section of the website. And that email list generates a list that I can send out for all future notices. So we will have potentially more opportunities for commenting online, as well as tracking the hearings process this summer.
I have a question for you about
Sure.
that. Our neighborhood association was made aware by the Park Place Neighborhood Association that there has been a request that some of the design guidelines that are are in the concept plans, for instance, South End, Park Place, and Beaver Creek are being asked to be removed because of, I'm going to be politically correct here, claims that these will cost more money, et cetera, by the development community. And I guess that when we had a minor discussion about it at our neighborhood association meeting, we had concerns that these concept plans have been developed by community members for the community, and to now go back and say, no, we don't want to do those, or somebody saying we don't want to do these things, really kind of flies in the face of the entire citizen involvement effort that went into those concept plans. I did not participate in the Beaver Creek one or the Park Place one, but I know what went into that. And I know that these were very community-based, and people have concerns about how these are going to develop and the way they're going to look. And so I think in a little way that does a little bit of a disservice to our community process, that I don't think that some of the things that are being suggested in these concept plans are really unreasonable, and they're very doable because we've got examples from other communities where we've talked about alleys, we've talked about maybe having streets go around natural areas so that, wouldn't be, a grid, but you could go, here's a natural area. Well, let's skirt around it so when you're driving by it or you're walking by it, you can see it. So I guess I just have a concern about that in terms of all the participation by so many members of our community, including some of the people sitting here, that would be a request. And I don't see any problems with houses being sold in our community right now. I mean, I'm sure that if we had some of these things put into the concept that would be developed through the concept plans, because there's going to be master plans, that, these would be really highly desirable areas. So I'm puzzled by that.
Well, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a separated answer if that's okay.
Sure.
I mean, the Beaver Creek and Park Place, Park Place and South End Road, they were adopted some time ago, and as part of the equitable housing process, and as actually part of my announcement, as we move forward on the city commission hearings, and the next one is this Wednesday, please do weigh in to your elected officials about this and many other topics related to the equitable housing process. For Beaver Creek Road, really the plan was adopted, but the plan did not go into a lot of details into specific design types for single-family homes. And so that's some of the check back we're going to be having in April. The community is, how do you take a narrative document and turn it into code, and where's that sweet spot of not under-regulating, not over-regulating? So that's what we're going to be having that discussion with the public in April. But so I would kind of separate that a little bit.
Right, well, I know Park
Yeah.
Place has it, and so
Yeah.
does South.
So for the
End one.
South End and Park Place, that conversation is happening with the city commission at their upcoming meetings on equitable housing.
Okay.
So with that, this Wednesday, the city commission
That was not planned. That was not planned.
Commissioner Lyle Smith, I'm sure, will continue off on this, but they'll be having, continuing their hearings. And if you want to track next steps, you can always go to the equitable housing and zone code update project, zoning and code updates on the planning page on the top right-hand side. There's a big kind of blue bar on the planning page, and it's at the very top up with the Beaver Creek Road concept plan. You can track the hearing schedule as it moves through this spring. The city commission kind of works through, they're taking a couple topics each hearing and kind of working through those issues. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to just provide for the audience, Kelly Reed, the planner who is working with our Historic Review Board on their policies. It's not necessarily code changes. The Historic Review Board creates policies on day-to-day things like fences and solar panels, not necessarily I want to build a new home, or I want to make an addition to my historic home, does go through kind of our adopted code process, but they also have these supplementary policies on day-to-day. And so those policies were created in the early 80s and have been updated a little bit over time, but their Historic Review Board, the last update was actually in 2001, because I did it, I remember that.
Yeah.
So it's been a while, and so they're kind of having a refresh look at the policies. There's new materials on the market, so they're going back and asking, is this an appropriate material for the Historic Review Board to allow as a permitted material without going through a formal process? That material didn't even exist 20 years ago, so we couldn't even ask that question. So some of it is just, it's a check back and to make sure that the policies are still a living document and aren't static. So she has met with Kenema and McLaughlin Neighborhood Associations. There are landmarks throughout the city. So she hasn't set up meetings with neighborhood associations, but if you are a neighborhood that have enough landmarks in your neighborhood that are landmarks which are individually designated houses and buildings outside of districts are still are required to meet those policies, you can set up or have a conversation with Kelly. There is an open house at the next Historic Review Board meeting, and I have it on my phone, so I want to make sure I get the right date. It is April 2nd from 4 to 6 p.m. here. Before the Historic Review Board meeting, there'll be an open house. So if you have anybody with an historic home, both in your neighborhood or if you're McLaughlin and Kenema, and they weren't able to make it to the neighborhood association's meeting, please send them to the open house. Kelly will be there. I'm actually going to help her.
That's not their regular meeting, though.
No, they moved it because it was during spring break and they didn't have a quorum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so the April 2nd meeting, we will be here to be able to answer any questions and take public comments and continue that process. Let's see, I had one more. Oh, I think that was it.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Quick. The April 9th meeting at Oregon State High School Library, is that 7 o'clock? I have it written somewhere. I
It's the
just don't remember.
same as last time, and I want to remember what it was. I want to say it was 6:30.
Okay.
Or 7. I think it is 7 because I think the driver's ed class went to 6:30,
okay.
so we had to go after them.
Maybe some people need a refresher.
I know. So when we're going to be starting to notice that meeting pretty soon, probably within the next week and a half, and you'll start seeing those save the date notices.
Okay.
And what time is the works?
The work session, the open house is from
4 to 6.
4 to
4 to
6
6.
on April 2nd.
And unfortunately, I will be on spring break.
And that is all I have.
Rachel?
Okay, so first to talk about Denise's comments about the Park Place and South End concept plan, design, code revisions that have been proposed. So for anybody who hasn't been involved in that full narrative, several weeks ago when the commission was reviewing equitable housing code, as Christina mentioned, some of the public comment that was received for that particular meeting were specifically talking about 2 chapters of design standards that reference the Park Place and South End concept plans. And the public comments were largely around alleys, garages. So like the Park Place, for example, concept plan has a requirement that garages be detached from houses. And builders were essentially coming to the city, I'm kind of paraphrasing, and saying a lot of people want houses with attached garages or garages built within them. If you drive around the city, most of the new homes nowadays have garages that are not detached. And so that was just one item that was in their letters to the City Commission asking for the commission to remove these 2 design specific chapters of the concept plans and asking the city to revert back to, for these concept plans, to use the citywide standards, which aren't quite as narrow. But all of the other houses in the city are using the citywide standards. And so these 2 particular chapters are more narrowly defined for Park Place and for South End. The City Commission that night had mixed reactions. I'll just say that across the commission members. And we asked, I pretty much said I was not making any decision on that topic without further input. I was truthfully kind of surprised that it went from public comment to an item that we were talking about. It moved very swiftly. And so I think it caught me off guard because I had prepared for all of the things that we were talking about that evening. And so I wasn't expecting to see it on a slide for us to consider. And so we specifically asked Ms. Turway in the planning department to reach out to the neighborhoods, let us provide some input, give us some time to collect input from the neighborhoods, try to think reasonably about what we're talking about. It is kind of a catch-22. On one hand, I feel like if I were going to buy a house, I don't know that I would want a house that had a detached garage where I had to walk from a garage to my house. I mean, it's just my personal preference, and today most houses are built not in that standard. Does that mean that all houses? So for me, when I read that, I was like, oh, that kind of seems logical, so it kind of made sense. The flip side of that is, yes, are we totally throwing out a lot of work and hours that folks in these neighborhoods put into these plans? And from attending the Park Place meeting, I did attend, and Commissioner Frank O'Donnell attended. I wanted to hear from the community, the neighbors that were there, for myself. And I would say there was a mixed bag of review at the end. I can tell you that, as far as some folks saying, oh, I get it. It's not totally outrageous, these changes that are being requested. And then, some were like what you mentioned, Denise, all this work went into this. How do we just, it just doesn't seem right throwing it out the window. So that's kind of the backstory on it. The City Commission will revisit this topic. And so I would encourage you, if you have any comments, but look at the code, particularly for Park Place and South End. I believe South End is going to get a presentation the same way that Park Place did. Their meeting is next week or week after. I think it's March 20th. Is the next presentation for South End, the 21st. And so that will hopefully allow, folks to be informed. And I have no idea what the city commission is going to do on that, but that's a little bit of a backstory and kind of where it's at. And that was not what I was going to talk about tonight. But I will say that the commission meeting on Wednesday is going to talk about some hot button items, food carts, shelters. There's several other good ones like that I know several folks did not feel like these topics that were really popular items maybe weren't advertised as well. And we're kind of surprised they ended up in a conversation with equitable housing. So I have no idea where those are going to go, but I would love to hear people's opinions on food carts and shelters and parking and stuff like that. So please look at the agenda for Wednesday night's meeting, but you can send comments at any time and we will get them. Okay, so a couple of things that I wanted to say regarding the CIC. I met with Chair Will Hite last week to kind of talk about the CIC and how it functions, the communication, what's working, what's not working, attendance, the neighborhoods. I mean, I planned for an hour. It ended up going for a 2-hour meeting. I was like, okay, there's a lot to talk about here. So I think there's lots of conversations that are still going to happen about how can we improve this group. And I think we need to bring in Christina's manager, Ms. Turway, and talk about Goal 1 and the land use planning process and how this group is actually serving that Goal 1 piece of our comp plan, or how it's not working. And so I just think it's a good dialogue to have, and I'm anxious to have some further communications and discussions with this group about the CIC in general and all of our neighborhoods, ones that are active and inactive, and what we can do. But in the meantime, I was trying to brainstorm of some future meeting ideas that I thought you all might be interested in. And I don't know if you knew, but this was kind of news to me. February 25th, there was a joint meeting of the Planning Commission and the Natural Resources Committee. And I thought that their topic would be good for this one. And it was how the public can learn about and stay involved in land use decisions. And the nexus with this group is, where is the CIC being plugged into the land use process? And I'm not sure that it's very clear, but that was one of the main purposes of the CIC. And I'm not sure if we know anymore, And so anyway, I was just thinking that might be a good presentation. I think Lori Bell, I mentioned earlier, the community enhancement grants. I would encourage you to invite her to maybe give a presentation on those, because we're trying to get the word out. So if she could come to maybe the next meeting or the one after, folks will need time to get their applications together, but we are looking for input. And I'll just leave it at that. Upcoming events, March 14th is the State of the City address by Mayor Holliday. It's hosted by the Chamber. It's, I believe, 11:30 a.m. to 1 on March 14th, which is next week. So if you're interested in that, I actually have to work, so I'm not able to attend that. I did complain about that. I was like, you're only focusing on a small group of the sector of Oregon City that can make it at lunchtime during the day. March 19th at 5:30, there is an open house that is being sponsored by Metro, and it's at the VFW Hall. And Metro is going to be talking about 3 particular projects: the Willamette Falls project, the Kanema project, and Newell Creek. And that's about the amount of information that I have on what they're covering about those three. Do you know any more
I
than that?
don't, so let me do some research.
Okay.
I can send a link out for
But
that.
I wanted to get it on your calendar because it's not very far away. I do have it on mine to attend. I know a lot about the Willamette Falls, but I don't know enough about Newell Creek and Kanema. So anyway, March 19th at VFW,
At what time?
5:30. And I think it's like one of those, you can drop in 5:30 to 6:30, 5:30 to 7, something like that. If you can't make it at 5:30, I think you'll be okay if you come in a little bit late. The following day, March 20th, from 5 to 7 p.m. is an open house in the Public Works building on First Street. And this open house is to talk about the Malala Avenue new streetscape project it's kind of already kicked off, where we have a grant that's doing improvements to Malala Avenue from Beaver Creek Road out to Highway 213. Did I say that right? Yes. That stretch. And so there's a variety of improvements, of pedestrian improvements, stuff like that. So this is a open house about that particular project. So if you live around Malala Avenue, I mean, a lot of us drive it a lot of the time anyway, but I actually live really close to it. So Public Works Building, which is at 13993 First Street. And I wasn't aware that we were opening the doors to the Public Works. So that's kind of a new thing. It's not gonna, it's not gonna look like grand, as I'm sure the building is what it is. So, but that's where the open house is scheduled for. Other things of note, you've mentioned the Historic Review Board, so I don't need to cover that. Part of the reason I'm telling you all of this is what Amy and I were talking about was like, she was like, how do we know what's going on in the city? So I took extra time to write down. I get all kinds of updates, and I was like, okay, there's some good tidbits in here that I don't feel is being communicated. So I only have a couple more. Planning is underway on the 175th celebration, which is this summer. I think the city has a team that's working on that celebration. That may be another summer event that this group may consider having a booth at. I don't have a contact for that one yet.
Lori Bell.
Lori Bell, yeah.
So just as a point though, you want to mention the First City Festival?
Yeah, the First City Festival is the other one that is going on.
Yeah, but our real birthday is December 24th, in 1844, so.
Oh, give me that day.
Yeah, I think they decided to do a summer celebration.
What Lori told me is that they're doing we're gonna do the whole year, but that's Oregon City's official birthday. But I remember when we had the 150th, they did something on.
Oh, the actual day.
Yeah, they did, because Dan Fowler was the mayor, and they did something that day.
That day.
Just something little. There was like an official proclamation, and there was certificates and all sorts of fun little things that they did that day.
Yeah, the only one I know about so far is that I think it's in August of planning an event, not competing with the First City Celebration, but another event for us to kind of put on our radar. Work is underway for the new police court commission building at the current Mount Pleasant School. So construction is scheduled to begin this summer, probably in July, which is why they are likely moving the National Night Out event, because that project will be well underway this summer, which will start with demolition of Mount Pleasant. And then last thing I'll mention is I attended the open house of the new Clackamas County Fire Station, number 16 on Malala Avenue. In case you didn't know, it is now operational and occupied, and it is a very nice fire station. And it is also the busiest fire station in Clackamas County, if you didn't know that. It receives, it's like double the calls of any other station. It's amazing, the numbers. It's a very popular, very active fire station. So anyway, that's it, unless anybody has questions. And I'm happy for you guys to tell me. I asked Amy, I'm new, obviously, but this is only my second meeting. And, I asked her, I was like, how can I help you? How do I make sure, and one of her complaints, she was like, I don't feel like I know what's going on in the city to what's going, because there's a lot of stuff in all the departments that are going on, and how do I get information to share? And so I thought this was the best thing that I could do really quickly to kind of give you a rundown of a bunch of dates, but I am totally open to suggestion. And I also want to hear complaints too. I want to hear the negative stuff of things that are going on in your neighborhood that maybe the city commission needs to work on or needs to know about. I can tell you there were a couple of commissioners that did not know and were surprised about the Creed Street, Rivercrest problems that were happening at the Bluff. And they didn't know about it. And if some of you don't know about it, you guys are kind of looking at me strange. There's a couple of eyes, but there's an agenda item on this topic, but a lot about the vandalism, really lots of disruption to the neighbors who live in that neighborhood. The pictures of vandalism and stuff like that, it's pretty shocking. The police reports, they provided crime statistics of how it's gone up in that area. And we had a chamber full of residents from both McLaughlin and the Rivercrest neighborhoods that brought this issue before the city commission. And I'm happy to say that we're making changes and that it's happening. The stuff's already been ordered to make changes to that neighborhood. So I guess I would just encourage you, if stuff's going on, definitely let us know. Let me know. I know. I talked to the folks from Rivercrest, and I know that they felt like they had worked with the city or different groups in the city, with Public Works and Parks, and never could make any headway. And they finally came to the city commission, but I think it had been like 2 years of them dealing with this. So don't wait that long.
Put
please.
keep Kenema Park on your list. Some of the same sort of shenanigans goes on there, and the only reason I know, obviously I don't live in Kenema, but I've been on 3 different ride-alongs with our police officer for the McLaughlin neighborhood, and every time we've gone out, we have gone down to Old Kenema Park, and there's a lot of activity that should not be happening there. And one of the things I know that the neighborhood had suggested at a meeting we were at was that the park needed to be closed sooner than 10 o'clock and put the gate across so that
Right.
people can't drive in there because they're doing sort of a lot of illegal activities going on down there.
Yeah, and the first I had heard of that is I read a one-liner statement about that park in one of the updates I got from the city, but I haven't heard anything more about it. So definitely, let us know if you don't think you're getting resolution by working with the police department or working with folks so that we can try to tackle it from a broader perspective.
To add to that, we had Jason, the police officer who patrols that, or was he the one that took on your?
No, I said it was the McLaughlin neighborhood liaison guy.
So Jason gave a good deal of time and solicited from the members that were present, asking of them to help him, indicating that, they can't be there at 9:30, they can be there at 10 or thereafter, and to be watchful and to do not hesitate to call in if you feel any kind of illegal activity or you just feel threatened or what have you. And it was pretty impassioned. We had a lot of people who had incidents that they could describe in terms of like what to watch for and what they've seen. And he did underline the fact that there's been an upswing in activity and that we should be all aware. So he was there.
Yeah, I felt like the Rivercrest issue went on way too long. And I'm not blaming Rivercrest for that. I'm just saying that the commission was not aware. There were people, I only knew about it because Rivercrest reached out to me to talk to me about it. Yeah, I think the city obviously is proving with the Rivercrest that they're willing to step in and try try to work together to resolve some of these issues. I mean, one of the challenges with our parks is if they're not used and people aren't going through them, then they become this place for bad behavior and
Well, this is
stuff
at
to
night.
happen.
That's part of the problem. The park is
And the
supposed to
police
be closed
department,
at night.
right, and the police department will tell you, they can't put a patrol there 24 hours a day, so then what do? And so they're not easy solutions, but definitely I hope that your neighborhood doesn't let this continue, like monitor it, let us know if things aren't improving or something, if we need to try to put more resources on it or have a conversation about it. Because it will affect all of our neighborhoods. A lot of us have parks, and it may be just a matter of time where we're all having to face these issues. So, well, hopefully most of us have parks.
Anyway, Chair Dennis,
Parkless place, yes.
one of the things that was recommended is that we've been told that we should be calling the non-emergency line, but that is not true. If you see a crime being committed or, a drug deal going down, that is a 911 call. And people, for some reason, I don't understand, they are reluctant to call. And that's the thing that our officer told us, call, even if it seems ridiculous to you. So if you see something that's going on, again, that's a crime, do not call the non-emergency line, call 911 and let them know, because they will come out. If you call the non-emergency line, then obviously by the time they get there, whoever it is, it's long gone. But the suggestion was try to get the Kenema neighborhood to request that the park be closed sooner, because most of the people that are doing the activity at Rivercrest and at Kenema Park, they will not go into those parks without their cars. So if the gate is closed and they have denied access, they're not going to get out of their car and do whatever they're going to do. They're going to they want to stay with their cars. So I said, yeah, that's great. So I haven't seen any quote unquote crimes in our neighborhood, other than one drug deal, but I called 911 and that's what you got to do. You have to keep calling so that they have a record of it. Put it in your speed dial. That's what I did.
Anybody else?
I also recommend the ride-alongs. You can go during the day or at night, so.
I think we
Did
can.
you just call the police department to do that?
To go on a ride-along? Yeah, check with you have a police officer that's assigned to your neighborhood.
Okay.
And check with them. You do have to go through a background check, so, they're gonna check you out, make sure you're not some crazy person going in the car with the police officer, but it is really, you will see a side of Oregon City that you probably didn't want to see. And I will tell you that 100% of the activity that I observed while on my 3 ride-alongs were because somebody thought it was a good idea at the time, but it really wasn't. It's really very strange.
Okay, I think we can conclude tonight. Anybody want to, what do? You offer a adjournment.
You're in charge.
Okay.
We're adjourned.
We're adjourned. Thank you.